Hey there, everybody, and welcome back. I am really excited to be talking to Tricia Goyer today and introducing her to those of you that haven't been to Teach Them Diligently and met her or read her books or listened to her podcast, or if you've somehow missed her, I'm excited to bring her your way today. We are going to be talking about some of the issues that led her to write her newest book, which is Calming Angry Kids, Help and Hope for Parents in the Whirlwind. And I know for some of you that is something that's really resonating. You're really stuck in situations where you're trying to parent through angry kids. You're trying to help them get through this. For others, you're probably wondering how you can help. So I think that this will be great information, helpful information, no matter what end of the spectrum you fall on. So, Tricia, I am so grateful you're here. Thank you for joining us. Can you tell us just a little bit about who you are and what led to this current project that you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Tricia Goyer, and I've been married to John for 28 years, and we have 10 kids. The oldest is 29. We have 3 biological kids, and then we've adopted 7. So the youngest is 8 years old. So I've been parenting for a long time. I've been homeschooling. We've homeschooled our kids all the way through. So Corey, we started when he was 5 years old. And so I think I've been homeschooling for like 25 years at this point now, which is crazy and fun and all at the same time. But in the last 5 years, we've adopted 6 kids out of foster care. And that's really where the book Calming Angry Kids came from, because I remember when I first went to foster care training, I thought, I've been a mom for 23 years. I know what to do. I know how to handle kids. We've homeschooled, so I've been around my kids a lot. And we brought home kids that had faced trauma, had really difficult past, and I didn't know how to help them. I mean, just remember holding a screaming child. She was, been in a tantrum for 30 minutes and just didn't know what to do, how to respond. And so we ended up going to trauma therapy, and the things that I learned going through all these just years of therapy, weekly visits with all these kids, have really taught me how to parent them, how to draw near to them when I feel like putting up a wall, and how to help teach them how to calm themselves. And then I found the tools that I learned are really for any parent who's dealing with a kid that struggles with anger.
How I was telling Tricia before we got on the recording, this is not something that I have really struggled with within our family. My children are generally laid back, not perfect, but their personalities do not lend to that the anger coming out like that. So for those of us who may not fully understand, or who may be dealing with things and not really knowing what we're dealing with, how does some of these issues present themselves? What would we be seeing if perhaps our children were struggling with anger or this pent up resentment or whatever is coming, overflowing, that we're seeing? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it looks like for my kids, for the first 2 we adopted, we had one that would express herself in different ways. So one of the things, when she just got a little bit upset or she thought we were mad at her, she would have full-blown tantrums. So she'd be on the floor, kicking, screaming, throwing stuff, just really hard to control. She would not be able to calm herself down. So she would need us to physically hold her, talk to her, and this would be a long, 30 to 40-minute process. And I remember at the time we adopted her, she was 5, and I had 2 2-year-olds in the house. So as I'm trying to calm her, there'd be 2 other kids dumping out the Cheerios. So we know those big outbursts of anger. And the 3 ways are really fight, flight, and freeze. So that was her fight zone. She was just going to drop on the floor and fight. But she also would have moments where she would freeze. There would be something that would happen that I wouldn't understand. And it was almost like she was there, but not there. She wouldn't respond. She would kind of zone off. And those are just defense mechanisms that she learned when she would feel like she's overwhelmed, she's anxious, there's new situations. Those are 2 ways. So the fight and the freeze. And then actually have another one of our older adopted kids. We adopted 4 of them, a sibling group. They were between the ages of 11 and 15 when we adopted them.
Wow.
And one of them was a flight. So she would get upset, she would run. So I remember we were camping once. She was upset about the situation. I was helping her sister with a burn, and she wanted help on a burn she'd got the night before. And I said, just a minute. And she just, that instinct of, I'm not going to be taken care of. My mom doesn't love me. All the stuff that had been in foster care, she just took off. She took off running. She went into the woods. We had to go find her.
Wow.
Other times she would run upstairs and try to climb out the window. It's just like her body's saying, I need to escape. And all these things was good to know. Fight, flight, and freeze, they are automatic with your body. So the fight, they might feel their fists ball up, their hearts are pounding, their mind is racing, the words are coming out, and they feel out of control. The freeze, again, if it's a child who maybe, and we might see them almost pull into themselves. They're not communicating. It seems like they're almost trying to ignore us, but really it's a physical response. And then the flight, like their body's just saying, run, like there's danger. And it might be the same thing, like if you saw a grizzly bear, of course, you would take off running. Well, this is just the body's natural reaction. I think that's one of the things that really helped me when dealing with these kids, because it's not like they're trying to be disobedient. I'd say, calm down, get back here. My words are not getting through, and everything inside their body is saying run or fight, or is trying to kind of block out what's happening.
I'm so glad that we started there, because the way that you explained that opens this up so much. Because I have children that react in a variety of those different ways. And particularly when you went into the freeze, I have one that like just walls go up all around, and it's maddening to even know, you just keep running into those walls. How do I help this one? How do I to get them through that? So what are some of the ways that we can reach with these different manifestations? What have you learned as far as really good strategies for helping our children?
Yeah. And I think the amazing thing is it's kind of similar for all three ways. So even though they're responding differently, the first thing to understand is when the emotional brain is triggered, that the thinking brain is turned off. And one way that one of the psychologists talked about it, this at an adoption seminar, was, so here is your brain, here is the thinking brain is touching your brain lobe, and when they are triggered, the emotions are up, there's no connection between the thinking brain and the emotional brain. So trying to talk to them, trying to explain the situation, trying to share a scripture verse, any of the things we try to do in those moments, their emotional brain is taking over, and they literally cannot hear us. It's like the teacher on Charlie Brown going, wah, wah, wah. And I'm the one that's going to explain why they should act a different way, or explain the situation, or explain why I said what I did. That's not coming through. And so really teaching them, instead of just trying to parent in the moment, which we're always thinking like, we need to solve it now, we need to fix this, we need to calm them down, is to give them space to calm themselves down. And that's something we have to teach them in a non emotional moment. So for example, to calm themselves down, one of the things we do is I was taught to teach them how to calm themselves down through a calming bag. And so they had a Ziploc bag with different things in it, such as Play-Doh, bubbles, scripture verses, a notebook, and like colored pencils. And they would go to that bag when they're feeling emotional. They need something kind of to get them calm. So maybe blowing bubbles. And when you blow bubbles, you have the bubble, you're breathing in and you're breathing out. So you're doing your breathing exercises. When we sit there and say breathe, they're like, wow, they're so emotional that it's hard for them to breathe. But when they say, go get your calming bag, give them space. I think it's one of the hardest things, especially my hardest thing is like a preteen or a teen when they're like, whatever, and they're rolling their eyes and they're stomping away. I want them to not be disrespectful. I want them to come back, to apologize, to listen to me, but really giving them the space, knowing that their emotions are heightened, that they're not going to listen anyway. And then once they have time to calm down, and that's not like going in the room and hitting things and going in, that's just building the anger. But it's teaching them to calm themselves down. A couple other things is like running their hands under warm water helps calm them down. Taking a shower. Sometimes a teenager, I'm like, just go take a shower. And that warm water will calm them down. But teaching them different ways to calm themselves down. And we teach our kids, how to eat with a fork, how to go potty on the toilet, like all these things. But sometimes we never teach them how to calm down, and it's giving them that space. And then once the emotions are done, like we don't have the cortisone and the adrenaline running through their bodies, because it's like physically during an angry moment, those things are chemicals in their bodies. Once they're able to calm down, then we could say, let's talk about that. Like, why were you so angry? And they say, well, my sister hit me. That would make me angry too, but let's talk about, how we respond to that. So you're giving them empathy, but then you're also teaching them, like, you don't act that way. And there will be consequences. It's not like when we're letting them go off to their room, there's not going to be consequences later. So maybe I'll say, you know what, we were going to, watch that movie tonight. We're just going to wait till tomorrow night because, you need time for yourself to calm down or whatever. So they will get consequences. It's not like I'm letting them run off and do whatever they want, but just teaching them, you can be angry, but let's figure out how to handle that a different way.
Wow. There's so much in what you just said that I was like, no, wait, stop. But one of the things that I thought was really of note, you talked about the fact that when they're so keyed up and that emotion has taken over, that it's really impossible for us to get through to them with some things. And yeah, I think that there's that element, like you mentioned, where we don't want them to get away with being disrespectful or the disobedience or whatever. But I also find sometimes that I just know that what I'm trying to get them to see would help them so much that I think walking away and trusting the Lord to, give you the opportunity to get them there, but recognizing they can't handle it right now. They can't get past until that they are able to settle their emotions some. They can't get past to even hear what is truly best for them and what will truly help them in the long run. So giving them that space and just really all of those tips were just really helpful for me. So thank you for sharing those. That's exciting for me as a mom. So, well,
yeah, and I think
I wanted to ask you too. We see these different manifestations in our children and, at different times, no matter what their background is or where they're coming in from. But with everything in parenting, I find that, well, actually with everything in life, I guess, there's always two sides to every coin. So are there ways that we as parents can either make this worse for them or actually set it up to where we can help alleviate some of these things before they even start? Have you found any ways to kind of navigate that to try to nip it in the bud before we get to where we're dealing with the reactions or whatever?
Right. And I think as parents, there's definitely things that trigger our kids, and sometimes it's because of us.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have unrealistic expectations of how they should get good grades or sit down and be able to sit there for 45 minutes and doing a math lesson, or we have them in all these activities when really they're just physically exhausted and wore out, or, we want them to respond immediately. Maybe they're in the middle of finishing a chapter of a book or finishing a show on TV, and we said, it's dinner time now. We want them immediately to stop. And so we have these expectations of, you need to obey me. You need to obey me now. This is a schedule that we've set and all these things. And we're just setting our kids up for these angry moments when we realize, like, give them 10-minute warning before you turn off the TV, or have them put down their book, or look at their schedule and see, do they have time just to relax, just to be a kid? I think I was really guilty of this with my first kids. I thought that we needed to take every opportunity. So they were in every music lesson, they were in theater and art classes and co-op, and we were just running ragged. And when they're exhausted, they are prone to being angry. And then I was overwhelmed and angry too. So I would be like, come on, we need to get our shoes, we need to get in the car, we're going to be late. And if I'm snipping at them, then they are going to be angry at me. So it was kind of building ourselves up. So instead, when I look at my curriculum, I'm homeschooling 6 kids all at once. I look at my curriculum and saying, okay, this year curriculum, because I'm doing so many kids, it's going to take us a year and a half.
Yeah.
Like, I don't stress. It's just like, we're going to take time. we're going to enjoy ourselves and not stress at trying to get everything done in a week. And I have written a curriculum before, and I know you put way more ideas and stuff in there than it's even possible to do. So realizing that also, if they're hungry, if they're tired, they're going to be prone to anger. So figure out what are the things that are making your kids upset, and also my response and my reaction. So if they're starting to get a little mouthy, if I jump on them, am angry, then it's just going to have them explode. And so one of the things the therapist said, when I escalate, or when they, even if I escalate after they're angry and I'm like, you need to listen to me, and my voice is rising, then all of a sudden it's not about them. It's not about us helping them. It's us proving ourselves that we're right, or trying to get our point across.
Right.
And so it's not really for the purpose of helping them with their situation. It's putting myself in there. And so really, instead of escalating, because pretty soon I'm yelling, and it's not about what they did, it's about, you're yelling at me, you're mean, or whatever it is. It's realizing that, it's about them, and I need to help them in this moment instead of making this a battle. And the more that we kind of pull back, we keep ourselves calm, we look at the schedule, we make sure they physically aren't hungry and tired. When we're aware of these things, we just set them up for success. My kids, in the morning, we have some of our kids are really wound up. We have a couple of kids that are ADHD, and so they take medication for that, which has really helped them. And I know it's not for every family, but for our kids, that was necessary. And in the morning, I wake them up in shifts. Some kids wake up earlier, they kind of get their energy out. I wake up more kids. We're able to get them calmed down before we start school. And sometimes that means they're sitting there watching a nature show for 30 minutes before we actually start school. By the time they sit down, everyone's calm. Everyone's able to focus, and then we were able to do our Bible study. So, I remember when I first started homeschooling all of them together, they'd wake up within 30 minutes, I'm trying to do Bible study, and they're arguing with each other. It just wasn't working. And just realizing, like, how can I set my child up for success, that they can do a good job, make sure they have enough rest, make sure everyone has food in their stomach, make sure they're all calm and ready to listen. And then we can start our day, or, make sure that they are actually wanting to do the activities we're signing them up for, or all these things, just figure out how to set them up for success.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that really ties everything that you were just saying about, kind of our side of things and recognizing to set them up for success is we have to go back again and again and again to why we're doing all the things that we're doing. I homeschool because I want that time to disciple my children, to equip them for everything that God has called them to be. That does not always mean that we get in everything, like you said, that drives the decisions that I make with each day. But it's very easy to get pulled off of that. And so just reminding yourself over and over again of your why. Why are we embarking on this in the first place? Will go a long, long way towards keeping your focus right, which then goes a long way to keeping mom calm. And we all know, as goes mom, often. If I am frantic and harried and crazy, my children are going to react in kind. So yeah, I think, again, just incredibly practical tips and advice for all of us to remember. Just keep everything in perspective and keep focus on the big things that are important, and recognize all of these little building blocks are pieces of that bigger whole. And so they need to be kept in their place too. Don't you think?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that helped me the most is having adult kids. Because I can look back and say, well, this was not important, but this is important. And years ago, John and I sat down and figured out priorities like dinner together as a family, Bible study time together as a family, reading books together as a family, serving together as a family. When they got to be teenagers, we went on mission trips as a family. And when you're having dinner together as a family, like that's a priority, you're not going to be signing up for 5 things in the evening because
Right.
you're not going to be able to fit that in. And looking back, that was the best thing we could have done because we had that relationship and that time with our kids. We spent time with them. We still will sit around the table when they're all home for Christmas because they're, 3 of them are adults now, and talk about the books that we read, the Chronicles of Narnia and the Cooper Kids series and all these things. Like, I'm so thankful that we set those priorities. And once you figure out, like, these are the things that I'm going to be so thankful we did, that, when they're adults are really going to matter, like serving in the church and going on mission trips, like having those things as priorities, not only sets your schedule now, but it's impacted my kids in the future. And one of our daughters is a missionary, over in the Czech Republic. And just seeing that when we take the time to figure out what the important things are, then we won't fill up those slots because we know this is our priority. And it doesn't seem like dinner every night or most nights should be like this big thing, but when they're adults, it was the big thing.
Yes. Yeah. And the conversations there are often more beneficial than everything you've done during the day.
Right.
Because you're downloading, you're actually seeing into their heart, and it's so natural. So, yeah, again, just really, really practical. And to follow up on what you said about having the adult children being such a good leveler for you, even with the stage that we're at, where Camden has graduated, the others are in high school, you already get to see kind of in your rearview mirror what's a bigger deal, what's not. So those of you that still have littles, that's why it's so important to have people in your life that can tell you these things and keep you balanced, these mentors and these veterans that can share with you, because you're not there yet, but we promise this is the way, this will be your view at that point.
Yeah, so if you're fighting for an hour over trying to get your kid to wear a matching outfit, like one of my daughter who's 26 now, that's a missionary, she for a year only wanted to wear dresses. And we lived in Montana in the snow, and I remember just fighting her. And I would go back now and just tell myself, like, it's not that big a deal. It was, put a snowsuit over that dress or whatever. Like those types of things that I think we get so worked up about really don't matter in the long run. And, especially those toddlers, they're going to want their way. So give them choices. Do you want the red cup or the blue cup? They feel like they're in control because they get to pick which one they want instead of, trying to fight over every little thing with them because they're trying to gain some control. So that's just looking back. Things that I wish I could have told myself as that young mom, just so stressed out over really things that I shouldn't have been stressed out about.
Yeah, exactly. So sadly, our time together is over for today, but I promise we will have Tricia back because I have a gazillion other questions that I want to talk to her about. So thank you, Tricia, for joining us.
Thank you, Leslie. I love talking with you, and you are a blessing to me.
Well, thank you. I am going to link to Tricia's book down below because you're going to want to pick it up. And then also I'll just send you to her whole website because she's got all kinds of great stuff. She's got an awesome podcast. You are going to want to connect with her on many, many, many levels. So thank you for tuning in. If you guys have any questions or want to share with us how you deal with different things that pop up in your family, I would love to hear that. Leave a comment in the Facebook group or send me an email and we'll kind of put it out for discussion. So thank you guys so much. Tricia, again, thank you. And I will talk to you again next week. If you enjoyed this video, you've got to check out Teach Them Diligently 365. Every week, there are even more thorough videos and chats about things that are interesting to you year-round.